Well, welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean. I am here with a gentleman who may or may not need any introduction. He's a guitar player. He's a comedian. He is Dave Hill. How are you doing, sir?
Good. How are you?
Well, I'm hanging in there. I guess like most comedians, you got your start in music and kind of transitioned over. Is that a fair statement, or vice versa?
Yeah. I started in music and just kind of accidentally became a comedian.
How does one
Never really.
accidentally become a comedian?
I never really planned to do it. But I started writing for TV and was like messing around with video and stuff. And then I'm sorry, my dog's barking a
That's
little
fun.
bit. Lucy, come on. We're talking. Lucy, come on. Sorry.
That's
Uh,
okay.
but yeah, my buddy Tony Carnivale, we were writing on a TV show together at VH1, and he just asked me to do a spot on his show that he was doing with another friend, Sean Taylor, in the back of Parkside Lounge on Houston in the East Village, and I did that, and it went well. And then I just kind of just people kept asking me to do stuff, and it grew from there. And then that was like 20 years ago, or 19 years ago.
Well, so you told me you're originally from Cleveland, and I mean, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, obviously, and then I guess uh, outside of that, would you consider Cleveland a music mecca?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not in the way that, Nashville or New York or LA are, or New Orleans or whatever, but yeah, there's tons of great musicians and bands from Ohio. I think it's a great place to make music, just because it's cheap and, you can afford to be an artist there, which I think is a good thing. New York, I don't know. I don't know how like an artist would do it. If you someone who's very young, because it's so hard to pay rent and everything here. But you know, Ohio's much cheaper, so I think it's a great place to be a musician.
Well, the landscape of obviously, we can talk about this ad nauseum, but the landscape of music has totally changed with streaming, with really some people would argue there's not much of a business anymore. I wouldn't go so far as to say that, but I would probably, because I'm a musician myself, I'm still playing. It's probably never been harder to turn a buck at this industry. And it will probably get worse, with different sorts of things like AI. Do
Yeah,
you
it's
find
horrible. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think if you can't sell a ton of T-shirts, I think you're screwed, basically, or tickets and T-shirts,
well, that's it.
basically.
Well,
Because I
and,
mean,
and
everything, the royalties. I mean, not even like spot everything. Like I music for me. I made I've made some nice money over the years with like having music and TV and film and streaming. Now the royalties for that have completely like it's insane. There's the writer's strike and the SAG strike, but the exact same thing is happening. Streaming is completely eviscerating music royalties as well. Not just with the music streamers, but Netflix and all the video streaming sites. You get absolutely screwed. So I think it's. So I'm trying to say all this without swearing, but
no, I appreciate that because we are on Eastlink Community TV, so we'll mention that. But do you find so? Okay, we talk merch. So when you're doing, if you're out on a comedy tour, you're doing comedy shows. Is that world? Are you selling merch and pushing merch in that world like you would music, or is it sort of set up differently?
yeah, I mean it's the same thing. But I mean, I was actually really bad at it, and because I hate generally I'm kind of just like to perform and not be like, give me your money in every pot, but lately I've been kind of having more fun with it and realizing that, people want stuff and they want to, I used to be like way more, just go finish a show and disappear. But now I kind of go out and meet people and sell merch. And it's, I think it's I think everyone's happier that way. And I certainly, sell merch, and that makes the whole thing better for me.
Well, and I think certainly in music, but if I'm hearing you correctly, maybe in a little bit in comedy, you're kind of forced to go that route because the traditional revenue streams aren't happening. Like nobody's selling albums. Um, I think it's 60 to 70,000 new songs a day go on streaming services. So it's incredibly difficult to do anything. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you have to look at different ways to get those revenue streams going because the traditional ones are kind of not quite there anymore.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, with comedy, there's not, those royalties don't really even exist. Streaming royalties aren't very good on most platforms. Because even the platforms that do play comedy don't pay on, they don't pay like a right, like then with music you could be paid a publishing fee, but comedy they're not really even doing that. It's starting to change and being addressed, but comedy for years was being like broadcast on different stations and platforms and paying zero for the writing side. So comedians were getting screwed even more so.
Yeah,
So that's starting to change, but
well, I
not
mean,
really.
and that's a good sign, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, I guess you don't want free stuff. I mean, some people, I guess, want free stuff, but you want a fair pay for fair work, right? And I mean, it really, right now, it seems like they figured out a way for the artists to really not get that. And I say that for musicians, I say it for comedians. I know some actors that go through the same thing, photographers. Good friend of mine shoots at venues, and he has a really hard time getting paid for his photographs. It just seems like they constantly are putting these barriers up for people to get paid.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, I think, yeah, I don't think it's like a new thing that people don't like to part with their money, but I think especially corporations don't like to pay individuals very often. I'm not saying everyone, there's people I deal with who are amazing, and I like one label that I have worked with, like, sends me royalty checks, and I email them like to be like, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing! I can't believe you just sent me a check." Like, that labels, that's the last thing they want to do.
Yeah.
And like, this company regularly sends me checks. I'm like, you guys are like unicorns or something.
Okay, we're going to take our first break here on Eastlink TV. We're going to be back with Dave Hill after this. Well, welcome back to Rimshots with Sean here in Eastlink TV. I have Dave Hill all the way from New York. So, what part of New York are you living in, Dave?
I live in Manhattan in the West Village.
Which is, I guess, would be considered an extremely, I guess, expensive place to live and set up camp. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty much the most expensive neighborhood on Earth. No, not on Earth, but no, it's pretty. It's probably the most expensive neighborhood in New York City. But when I tell people I live here, they're like, "Oh, like, we must be rolling in it." But I've just been sort of good uh, at finding. I think someone was probably murdered in my apartment at some point because it's below market, as they say. So
And we don't want that to
yeah.
get out, right?
Well, it's too late. I've already said it. But this apartment that I'm in, though, it used to be Iggy Pop's, actually.
Oh, wow,
He
that's
used,
cool.
he used to live here. Not he wasn't the tenant right before, but he lived here. I think, like, either right before or right after his Berlin period, as I understand it. So it's a lot of pressure when I'm home. I don't even wear a shirt in the house normally, but
Well,
I put one on for you.
well, then, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm thinking, like, if you're having a little bit of a dry spell with the comedy shows or the music thing, you could actually sell tickets for a tour of Iggy Pop's former apartment. You might turn a buck there too, right?
I never thought of that, but I actually should do that. We
Yeah.
found a we found a cigarette butt in between one of the bricks out on the deck, and we thought it had to be someone cool put it there. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and maybe one of Iggy's friends, who knows? But I mean that is, I mean, what a lot of people. So where I live, it's really interesting. Somebody famous or pseudo famous comes to town, it makes the news for days, right? So Ben Affleck one time happened to be in town. They get 3 or 4 days out of it on the news. Versus I lived in Toronto, you see people like that are pseudo famous all the time. New York's the same thing. I mean, you're right in the center of all that stuff. So it's kind of like if you see somebody that's famous, it's a little bit of a yawn, right? That set this up for me because, like I say, here where I come from, it's a big deal all the time.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a yawn. I think people get excited, just as excited as anyone else, but it's sort of like in New York, it's not like people don't really like say anything or do any. If you see a celebrity in a restaurant, you wouldn't ever say anything to them. Um, but I get super psyched. Like there's a restaurant that I go to. I haven't seen him in a while, but I would see Elvis Costello in there regularly, and I'm always super excited. I know I've always played cool and never say anything, but I have faked having to go to the bathroom just so I could walk by his table and just kind of just be creepy a little bit. But
Well, I
yeah,
mean,
once in a while. Yeah, I know. No, I think everyone gets just as excited in New York about celebrities. They just don't say anything. They just keep it inside.
that's cool. Because I mean, I've I lived in Toronto for 7 years, and I had the opportunity to meet Paul Schaefer. I'd met all kinds of different people just through the music business. And I kind of got myself a little bit. Oh yeah, it was cool, but I wasn't like a fan. Just because
Mhm.
when you meet some of them, they just turn out to be most of them turn out to be people. To just happen to be successful or more successful than you. Correct?
Yeah, totally. I mean, most. I can think of very few celebrities I met who weren't very just kind and pleasant. There's maybe been I could count on one hand.
There was a
Even
movie.
just a couple fingers, one finger maybe.
Fair enough. There's a movie that was shot up here, K-19, The Widowmaker. I don't know if you remember it. Harrison Ford, Liam Neeson. It was a submarine movie. They shot most of it up here, and they were in town for I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and they would randomly show up at people's house parties on Friday and Saturday nights, which was pretty cool.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, and that turned into kind of a big deal for people around town. So we're things like that are kind of interesting. So what's your schedule been like? What have you been up to the last little while in terms of splitting your comedy, your music? Are they blending? How you handling your schedule?
They're pretty blended together. I mean, I most of them. I have a band, Valley Lodge. But we've toured we toured Japan, we did Bonnaroo, and then we played two shows in Ohio. But that's the only touring we've ever done. And with now, I kind of mix the comedy and the music, where I play a lot of guitar in my comedy shows. And the thing is, people post the photos, and I post the photos, and so people see me with the guitar and they think I'm singing songs all night. But I really don't sing. I only sing like one or two songs all night, and the rest is like just talking while just kind of ripping solos and stuff. So it's kind of a mush thing both. But I just got back yesterday from Calgary. I did the Big Winter Classic there Saturday night,
Nice.
and that was super fun. And then I went and saw. Oh, Lucy's barking again. Lucy Bear, come on! I'm trying to talk. She's policing. She keeps me safe here.
What kind of dog is she?
She's a boxer, pit
Oh,
bull,
oh, nice.
mutt, hellhound.
Nice.
Lucy, come on. But yeah, and then I was in Edmonton for Wind Eruption on Friday night. Did a couple shows there, and it was just a blast. And I went and saw my friends in Battles both nights, and so I had an excellent time. And next week I go on tour. Do you know the actor Michael Shannon?
Yep.
He and my buddy Jason Narducci, who plays with Bob Mould and Superchunk, and he has his own great band, Split Single. They're touring, playing the first REM album, Murmur, up and down the East Coast. So I'm going to open that show, but I'll do comedy but I'll play. I do comedy, but I rip guitar solos. Is basically.
Well, I want to get to that in the next segment, but one of the things in a lot of the music that I grew up listening to, and from doing this podcast, I've got to meet a lot of these people I listen to. They're doing the weekend warrior stuff, so they're doing flyouts. They fly out on a Thursday. They'll do maybe a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, fly back Sunday, and then they do whatever. Some of them have, jobs, businesses, or whatever. Is your world kind of like that, or are you going possibly 7 days a week?
No, I'll go. I think this thing with them is like the 6th to the 14th of February. So what is that? 8 days. And then yeah, I'll go out and then I'll be in town and kind of do sporadic stuff for a couple months, and then I go to Europe and Ireland and the UK with opening for Tenacious D, and
Oh,
that'll
nice.
I'll probably be gone about 3 weeks for that, and I'll do some of my own stuff as long as I've come all that way. I'll do some headlining shows and stuff, but I don't like to be gone. I only like to be gone normally like a week or two. I don't, because I just miss my girlfriend and our dog. I like performing and I like traveling and seeing places, but I mostly like sitting on the couch. So,
Fair enough, man. There's nothing wrong with that. We're going to take one last break. We're going to be back with Dave Hill after this. Welcome back to Rimshots with Sean here on Eastlink TV. I am with Dave Hill, comedian, might as well say actor, musician.
sure.
You gained a little bit of notoriety a few weeks ago. You did something that somebody saw you do that put you on my radar. You played at a hockey game.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. I played.
Talk about that because it was funny because there was so many. When you and I first started talking a couple of weeks ago, I went and I looked at some of the reactions, and there was so many reactions all over the place about. Just talk about that quickly for a second.
Yeah, I played the national. Well, my new book, The Awesome Game: One Man's Incredible Globe Crushing Hockey Odyssey, out now. I finished that book, and as hinted in the title, it's about hockey, and sort of with that out of my hands and not really having my publisher's money and influence to gain access to hockey games, I thought, oh, I should like think of other fun hockey things I could do. So I was like, oh, I want to rip the national anthem on guitar at a game, and I put it on Instagram saying I wanted to do this, and so many people reached out to help. Mostly people who had no connection to any hockey team. They're like, a guy would write and be like, "Hey, are you available on such and such date to do the game at the Columbus Blue Jackets game?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Do you work for them?" And they're like, "No, I'm just gonna email them for you." So it was kind of cool that so many people were into the idea. But anyway, I did an AHL game, Cleveland Monsters, and then Maple Leafs. And I was going to be in LA, and a friend knew guys at Violent Gentlemen, a hockey brand that's awesome, and then they knew the Ducks people. So yeah, I did the Ducks anthem, and I honestly just did it for fun and to get some sweet hockey tickets and bring my friends to the game. And I did that, and I didn't give it a second thought. And then the next day, people started sending me all the coverage of my anthem, and I was completely. I mean, I think with any creative, any form of art, if I may throw my anthem playing in that broad definition, I want it to be loved or hated. I think someone liking something doesn't. Who cares? So I was thrilled by I got literally hundreds of messages. People, a guy stopped me on the street today to tell me how much he loved it, but so many people hated it. I mean, like, it was amazing. Like, just the hatred was awesome.
Well, and I wanted to ask you about that because it was just like I was reading all these. Oh, did he think he was Hendrix and all this stuff? It's like I saw it and it was like to me, it was your rendition of a song that's been heard 85 million times. I said to somebody after I saw it, I don't know if he actually purposely sat down and said, you know what, I'm just going to turn this into a joke or whatever. What I saw, I thought was great. What was your
Oh,
mindset
thanks.
going into that? I mean, like, were you just, I'm going to show up and do it? And
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was kind of doing Eddie Van Halen, Dimebag Darrell meets Hendrix version of it, maybe. The wah. I wasn't even gonna use the wah, and then at the last second, I ended up throwing it on my pedal board. So people maybe go, "Oh, it's Hendrix," but people are also stupid generally, and so they're like, "Oh, it's like Hendrix." But if you listen to the two versions, they're not very similar. Also, I mean, Hendrix is obviously one of the greatest, if not the greatest, electric guitar player of all time. But if people actually went and listened to his version, most people know like the first five notes of his version. If you go listen to his entire version, it's insane.
Yeah.
And there's wrong notes, and it's if a no name guitar player did that and Hendrix hadn't done it, he would be eviscerated. Even though it's completely incredible. But I'm not saying my version was incredible, but I'm just saying I did it, and if anything, when I finished it, what's funny to me is I thought I didn't stray far enough. And like I was just like, oh, I played it so safely. But I think all the dive bombs and like all the like harmonics with the tremolo, I mean it's a bit absurd. I didn't think it was absurd at the time, but when I listened back to it, I sort of get why people but I don't know. I think people are you either get it or you don't. I don't really care.
Well, it's just
Whatever.
well, it's one of those things too. It's like, so I'm a drummer, right? And if somebody does a Rush song and they don't do it note for note, you suck. Or you know, I remember seeing Dream Theater in Toronto in 1993, and somebody walking out going, "He missed that fill in part," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, you forgot about all
Well,
the amazing stuff that he played before that, right?
yeah, but I could see that though with Theater and Rush, but like I feel like with a national anthem, that's sort of like you basically have this skeleton of. I mean, especially with the U.S. anthem, which is a horrible song. Like it's one of those things. Like was Francis Scott Key the only contender? Because it's garbage song. I mean, our anthem should be like "God Bless America" or something. Instead, we have this horribly written kind of battle stupid song. The Canadian and that I'm sure anyone who get mad at me about my anthem playing probably get madder at what I just said. I don't care. But the Canadian anthem is vastly superior as a musical composition. At the very least, it's more interesting. It does like a modulation in the middle of it. That's pretty cool. It's a better song, I think. But I don't know. I don't think it's like. And then I mean, you want to hear butchering. I mean, most vocal versions of. I'm not defending. Like, I'm not saying I did a good job or bad job, but most vocal performances of any national anthem are horrible. Like,
Little
just going like
grandiose,
that.
yes.
Like, I've been to Rangers games where they've rendered it unrecognizable. But I don't know. I just think the national anthem is like tofu. It's what you put. It's nothing on its own.
I like that. I like that.
It's
So
just the
just to cover
sauce you
what,
add.
well, so and we'll post some information on your book. But your favorite hockey team?
I mean, I'm more of a lover of the game, so I live in New York. So I want the Rangers to do well and be thrilled if they got the Stanley Cup. But if they get knocked out of the playoffs, which will likely happen, um, I'll just go. I'll just go. Who's all right? Who's left? And then I go with them. But I don't. I don't. There's teams I don't. I would rather have win. Like when Tampa wins, I feel like it's a complete waste for everybody except for the city of Tampa, I guess. But uh, I don't know. I'm like kind of a fan of the original six, and then I don't know. I'm into Vancouver. Uh, I'm kind of reluctantly becoming an Avalanche fan only because they used to be the Nordiques, and the Nordiques jersey is the greatest NHL jersey of all time.
Great call right there. And Nathan McKinnon grew up about 10 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. So he
Oh,
was,
nice.
yeah,
I mean, he's a beast. I mean, I'm stating the obvious, but totally insane.
So he played for our local junior team and was insane. Dave Hill, I want to thank you for doing this, man. I want to stay in touch with you. I want to see what you're up to next. Great
Please
job on
do.
that anthem.
Thank you. I mean, and also, I can't stress enough. I love the people that hated it as much as I love the people that loved it. It's truly like the only people that disappoint me are the people that didn't have a strong opinion.
Well, there you go. I loved it. I thought it was great. So there you go. And I mean,
thanks.
again, I'm a drummer and I could care less about anybody doing a national anthem on any instrument, but it definitely piqued my interest. And it piqued my interest because of all the reaction. And I'm typically not that guy, but when I heard about the reaction, I gotta see what this is all about. So anyway, it was great, man.
It was amazing. I mean, I don't know if you saw Breakfast Television did like a 4.5 minute piece just talking smack about me, which was, I loved it. But my favorite part about it is I've been a guest on Breakfast Television twice, and I was just on in October. And I realized they have a million guests. It's probably hard to keep track. But I was surprised that no one there was like, wasn't that guy just here?
Yeah. Sir, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you next week, guys.